Alan, we got to rock it. We got to get going. It's time to learn. It's time to get better. 2024 might be the timestamp on this one, but I don't care when you're doing this stuff. You've got to keep rocking. You got to keep rolling because we're staring at an economy that, maybe not so good. Every once in a while, economy's awesome. Every once in a while,
Just remember when the bear's chasing you, Chris, what do?
You know what? Sometimes the bear eats you. Sometimes you eat it.
Got to run faster than the guy.
Oh, that's right. That guy too.
Forgot that one.
I did. Oh, damn it. Cut that, Michael. Oh, no, we're going to keep it on. We got to keep rolling. But before we keep rolling, we got to talk about Big Daddy's big weekend.
Yeah, Big Daddy had another weekend with his sphere of under the influence.
I did.
Yeah.
So we went out to Colorado. We had to go skiing. My friend says, hey, man, you want to go out there and go to Durango, Colorado, and we'll just go skiing at this place called Telluride. And I'm like, sure, man, I heard about it. Yeah, let's go do this thing. So we go out there. 2 connections later, 24 hours of flying. I get there, and I've skied a little bit.
When's the last time you went skiing? I mean, technology has changed a lot.
That's funny that they didn't have the leather bindings and the skis that they had to strap around your shoulder. But no, I grew up in Michigan where we learned to ski on hills that were made out of landfills, where they actually took the landfills, pushed them up, and would stick methane relief pipes in there. So as we were skiing down the hills, you'd ski around the methane pipe, but you knew what you were doing. You could smell it.
That was my first A in college in Michigan.
Was skiing?
Downhill skiing, and it was on a landfill.
Absolutely.
I remember we were driving out there because I came from the West, and I'm like, where's the mountain? And they're like, oh, it's just around the corner. I'm like, how can a mountain be around the corner? And there it was.
Oh my God.
We did our final exam backwards down the hill, and the guy called us an ass as we went by, and we got an
A. So that's skiing, and that's what you do when you get to live the big time. And then we come back to earth, and we're back here. We're working hard. We're doing our thing, making stuff happen. One of the questions I just got from one of our listeners, by the way.
Yeah. Throw a name.
That's a great question. You hit me on the thing. Jake. It was Jake. Jake, shout out, buddy. He asked me, Chris, going into 24 with what's going on, what do you recommend for marketing mix? And I'm like, dude, I don't know yet. I wish I had a good answer for you. Depends on where you're at. I will tell you that I'm going to mix it up a little bit this year. I've cut back on some things. One of the big things, I literally just got off the phone with 3 different people over the last week. And we're all talking about Google and pay-per-click and the crap they're doing right now. It's not working well, boys. You got to watch out for yourself, ladies and gentlemen.
So Google, you did not just say that things are getting tough and you're cutting back on marketing. I just want to be clear.
I cut back on PPC. I'm going after it in other areas.
So right. What am I going? Reallocating. You're not cutting back on marketing.
No.
Just want our listeners to understand.
No, I'm not going to double down, everybody, but I am definitely going to stay the course. Which is tough because cash flow is tight right now in the months I've been working on. We don't talk about this stuff a lot, but it's not all roses and going down hills and
well, it is for you most of the time. Caviar, champagne.
Well, and cozying up with the bunnies on the ski lift. Yeah. No, it's not good, but it's something you got to do. So watch your marketing mix, everybody. Jake, we talked about this. One of the things I will tell you is it doesn't cost you anything to go out there on YouTube yourself and post a few videos of what you're doing, tag yourself, tag your company, do some stuff, get it out there. You're going to get rewarded for it. Little bits, little places, all the place around.
And we've had a couple of marketing experts on recently, so you can go back to those episodes, but you definitely don't want to cut back on your marketing. That's just stupid because everybody else is. And so again, run faster than the other person when the bear is chasing you. But the one thing they said was, maybe have a shorter leash on whatever campaign you're doing, do a lot of testing and measuring and pivoting.
Good point. Yeah, absolutely. If you didn't go back and listen to those episodes, they're good stuff. He's got one on that one. All right. That's enough of that. We have got to get to one of my favorite guys.
This is a big deal.
This is a way beyond a big deal, guys. And he doesn't think so. He's over there shaking his head already. But when I went to write a book, I had a very short list of people who I'd asked if they would read it and endorse it. And today we have one of the guys who agreed to do it. He was only 25th on my list.
Thank you, Chris.
And Alan.
Yeah.
But we have Dale Cardwell from Trust Dale here in Atlanta.
That is unbelievable.
That we have Dale Cardwell.
Yeah.
He is not only is he a big deal in Atlanta, he's a way big deal. And we're going to let him talk about it. He probably won't because he's too.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. See you next time. Leave on a high note.
We have Dale Cardwell. So Dale Cardwell, what is Trust Dale? Well, Trust Dale is a group that he got together. He's built an idea, which was, I have a background that looks for bad people, and I'm going to turn that around. And I'm going to look for good people, and I'm going to tie them into consumers so consumers can find good people at this resource that I called Trust Dale. and he has built this thing. He's been doing it now for 15 years.
15 years.
Love it.
So I got a quick story to say. When I first moved to Atlanta 25 years ago, corporate America, and I was quickly advised there's two people you don't want to piss off, and one is Clark Howard, and the other one is Dale Cardwell, because he was the investigative reporter, and you didn't want him walking into your store.
Wait a minute.
That-
we just
that-
talked about him hooking good people together, and you're scared of him already. And we
I
just brought
was.
him in studio.
He seems a lot nicer than I always I thought he had fangs and horns.
Well, he actually Dale's pulling out his book right now, and he said, "I think I've investigated you." No, so but Dale,
I'm on the naughty list.
so Dale's business is trustdale.com. It's here in Atlanta, but he also has a syndicated show nationwide. But before we get to all that, Dale, thank you so much for coming in the studio. This is going to be a great story. So everybody, hang on, because I guarantee you, not many of you have had this career that this guy has had.
Well, thank you, Chris. And you're one of my favorite people. You're a longtime partner, and I was thrilled to join you.
This is awesome. So Dale, we're going to get back to the business stuff in a minute, but you grew up where?
I was born in Greenville, Kentucky. My dad was a coal miner, and we moved around a lot. So by the time I'm a year old, we moved back to Alabama, where my family is from. I grew up in the suburbs of Birmingham until I'm 13. My dad gets transferred back to Kentucky. So I go to high school and college in Western Kentucky, went to Western Kentucky University. Got my first TV job in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, which is a market that's so small it didn't even have a market designation number. But a big thing happened back in 1985, the Gander, Newfoundland air crash. 248 Fort Campbell soldiers died coming back from peacekeeping in the Sinai in Egypt. And a giant story fell in my lap. A young lady whose fiance was on that plane had sent her an audio tape 3 days before they left saying, "We're all scared to death to ride on this plane. It's rickety. The military could do better, but old Uncle Sam will get us home." That story wound up on CBS Evening News, ABC World News Tonight, NBC Nightly News, CNN, cover the New York Times, kind of propelled me much faster in my career than the normal career goes. And so that's how I started.
So I'm assuming that just gave you a sudden sense of purpose in what you were doing.
It did, Alan. I am a person of faith, and I believe that my life is directed, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the jams I got into over the years, but I always felt this veil of protection. I felt like I was on a mission. I had a purpose.
Wow.
So how did you go, dad, mom, and you sat there and told dad, mom, I'm going on TV?
That's a really good question. I always wanted to be a sports reporter, Chris.
Nice.
I was
Huh?
in love with sports.
Well, that is God's
Right?
work right there.
Yeah.
Sports.
And I get to college, and I'm in my first broadcast class, and the advisor says, "Okay, Dale, tell me where you from?" And I'm like, da da da. And he says, "Okay, are you a great athlete?" And I'm like, "No, no, I'm not." He said, "Do you have a voice that emanates from your toes?" And I said, "No, I don't." And he said, "Well, good luck with this sports career, because the odds are really against you. A very, very small number of people make it and bust through sports." And man, I was devastated. I went to my dorm room that night. I was on the edge of tears. I'm like, oh my gosh, my chosen profession isn't going to happen. And I prayed about it. And I said, "God, show me what you want me to do, because I'm here for you. I'm not here for me." And this is true. I get up the next morning and I have this burning passion for news. I have a burning passion to tell people things that they deserve to know. And that's how it started.
Well, I would tell you the guy's been true to it, because I'd never heard him tell me that before, but knowing him for the last 15 years now, yeah, you see it. It's there. So you had this, but you're telling mom and dad, I'm going to get into the broadcasting world. And I'm telling you, man, if I would have told my parents that, my mom and dad would have said, "Well, you're not going to school. And we're not paying for that." Because I heard enough of that crap, by the way. I said, "Dad, I want to go to Case Western University." He goes, "Yeah, did you get a scholarship?" I said, "No." He goes, "No, you're going to Michigan Tech."
Well, see, I had a plan. I told them I was going to TV school, which meant I was going to be able to fix everybody's VCR
Oh,
and
beautiful.
television.
Huh?
Yes.
Back in 1985, you can get away with that crap, right? Thank God we did not have social media then because I got away with so much back then. There he goes. All right, so you go to TV school, you break this story. Wow, that must have been amazing. You must have felt like 20, you were what, how old? 20?
23.
You're on top of the world. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to be, now this is really dating myself. Walter Cronkite.
Yeah,
That's
that's
who
who
you-
I wanted to be.
Yeah, you're like, I got this.
Yeah.
I'm on my way. So the offers must have
Hmm.
flowed in, just absolutely flowed in.
You know, it's really funny. We're going to talk about how television works. I was making $12,800 a year at TV 43 in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. My best offer came from the 43rd largest television market in the country. Now, there's 218 markets, so getting an offer from the 43rd largest, Birmingham, was a big deal to me. I took the job because they were going to pay me $13,000.
$200 baby.
Yes.
Hey, you
Wow.
know what? We can get the best box of wine you can find, baby, because I'm going somewhere. All right. So you took it. You went back to Birmingham.
That doesn't even cover the U-Haul.
Oh my
No,
God.
it doesn't.
No.
Oh wow. All right. So you continue on in this career and we're gonna fast forward through the things. You've seen so many things. We could sit here and talk for hours about all the things you have seen. And you eventually get into investigative reporting. But I didn't know this because he mentioned this right before we got on as he met Alan. So you came to Atlanta in 1996 because you were this big ABC breaking news guy.
No.
Oh, so how'd
No.
you get here?
I was tired of telling people how rotten the world was in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I was. I saw an ad in Broadcasting Magazine for a consumer producer to work for this guy named Clark Howard, who was a syndicated radio show host and a TV guy in Atlanta. And I'm like, that's my job. That's my calling. I'm going to do the grunt work for this guy. I'm going to go out and I'm going to fight for truth, justice, and the American way and live happily ever after.
Because you got tired of delivering bad news?
I did. That was it.
Did that ever get to you, like delivering the bad news and doing what you did? Again, for a lot of us from the outside in, it just seems so romantic that you get to be on TV. You're in the middle of something. You know, I'm thinking of you in the middle of a fighting. You know, the war, the this, the that. It just did it start to wear on you?
Late in my tenure in Birmingham, I broke a story about a Birmingham City Council member being investigated for cocaine distribution. And he came to the station the evening after I broke the story, stood in my face and threatened my life and shook me up pretty good. I went home, didn't tell my wife. I went to bed and I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I was checking the locks on our windows subconsciously. That's what I was doing. I was sleepwalking, checking the locks on our windows when I woke up and said, "Oh my gosh, yeah, this is not fun."
Like I said, man, you've just got to hang into this story because this is a story that many of us don't have. You get threatened with your life because you broke the truth.
But my guess is that, did you have to think about it before you did that story? Was there I mean, no.
No, no, I just did it because it was the thing I was supposed to do.
Wow.
Man, that's no filter. Not for nothing and being an Italian, which don't judge. But I probably would have thought about it a couple times, and then I absolutely would have called Uncle Tony for a little help.
Yeah.
But that's a different story for a different time. Let's keep going. So you went Birmingham, Nashville, Atlanta, or did you bounce like 75 times? Because I've heard
Birmingham, Raleigh,
Okay.
Raleigh, Nashville, Atlanta.
So in the arc of the world of that's not that many for you in your world, right?
5 stations, 25 years. Atlanta's an interesting town because when I was a kid starting out in the business, it was like the 18th, 19th largest market in the country. And your goal is to get to a top 10, right? Well, Atlanta was a boom town. So all of my career, Atlanta just kept getting higher and higher in the market designation. So by the time I came here, we were 11. We were just outside the top 10. Today, Atlanta's the 6th largest market in the United States.
That's amazing that you were here for that. So you said, hey, I'm going to come down. I'm going to work for this guy named Clark Howard. Again, if you're not in Atlanta and you're in one of our many countries and continents, and of course the galaxies,
More
that we
galaxies.
service.
Yeah.
You can go out there and you can Google who Clark Howard is, but you're going to see who actually is, which is funny because I've had people say this to me. I've known Dale for quite a while. We're going to get to what he's done as an entrepreneur. Trust me, guys, we'll get there. But when I met him, they're like, "Oh, that's Clark Howard's investigative reporter." I said, "Well, that's before my time, but yeah, I've heard that he's done that." So you went from producer behind the scenes to going, you know what, Clark, I'm going to go out there and do and help you. So how did you become Clark Howard's investigative reporter?
Not really the way it happened. So the station would come to me and they'd say, Delta just did a stock split. We need Clark on at 6. And he's not here. What do you mean he's not here? Well, he's on vacation or he's in.
Yeah, because he would fly anywhere if it was
Yeah,
cheap enough,
he's
right?
He's in Aspen. Okay, you do it. And so I wound up having to do his on-air work because he might not have been available, and it happened more and more often. And a funny thing happens, Chris, when you are doing stories that affects consumers. People start calling you and saying, well, if he did that guy's story or that gal's story, maybe he will do my story. And that led to people calling me about corruption, and they're like, Bill Campbell, former mayor of Atlanta, is flying all over the country using contractor money to pay for his gambling junkets and everything else. Do you have the guts to do that story? Well, I felt like people deserved to know that. So I broke the story that led to Bill Campbell going to prison. Linda Shrinko, the state school superintendent, I get a tip that she's using campaign contributions for things like facelifts and things that don't really have much to do with education.
And that's bad.
Well, in some circles it is.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, I want to go back to that gambling thing. So
That a little close to home, Chris.
you're not a public servant.
Yeah, that's
Chris.
true.
You're
And
not-
so-
no.
So much for that future for you,
Hey,
Chris.
I use points to get there, and
Yeah.
I lost some money all on my own. But what? No, I actually Alan, you guys can't see this on the podcast. We can have it on our YouTube channel, by the way. Small Business Safari. Check us out. We're still here. All right, but back to that. He said I broke the Bill Campbell story. I moved to Atlanta, and Bill Campbell was going to jail, and I started listening to all that stuff at that time. I had no idea that this guy was the guy who broke all this stuff that knocked Bill Campbell down like that. Which, and no slight on Bill, if you're listening, you can't know where we're living, but we're not in Atlanta anymore. We're in witness protection programs. So don't Arizona. Don't worry about that. You can go find stuff there. So, but that's crazy. But you had this. You said guts. I don't know about that. That's nuts. Because you knew you're going up against. I mean, that was a pretty big dude
Yeah.
at the time, and you had to go out there. So you don't just break a story because some crackhead tells you this. You go out there, you do the research, you figure out what's going on, and we're getting to why you started your business.
Yeah, you kind of have to have two confirmable sources. It has to be true. You don't take a pot shot at somebody unless you know it's absolutely true.
It seems like that has changed in current media
Yeah.
Yeah, don't you think?
a little bit.
I mean, think so. Back to that. So, because again, if you're listening to this podcast, you're like, "Ah, man, he just broke some story." You know what? I'll break a story with my iPhone. Yeah. Well, hang on there, tough guy, because there's a lot more going to it, and that's what Dale started building. Again, faith. Believe people had to understand the truth. Had to make sure he believed the truth first. Because what is the truth? I mean, of course, there's always two sides to every coin. What'd you find harder, finding out what the answers were, or delivering that news on TV?
Wow, that's a great question.
Oh God, 2-1 now.
It's a great
Jeez,
question.
thank you.
I'd say the latter, because if you would discover something that people deserve to know, then there was this whole political level you had to get through. Whose head's going to roll because you report this? Can we ignore it? There was a lot of pushback all through the industry. There is a presence there of who you can go after, who you can't. And I didn't like playing that game. I didn't play that game. That's why I got out of it at some point.
All right, so let's talk about that game. So you're Clark Howard's investigative reporter, which actually turns out to be your Clark Howard's vacation fill-in guy, where everybody started like, so Clark, don't kill me on this one either, buddy. I've never met him, by the way, but
Great guy.
yeah,
Great guy.
so again, Clark, Dale vouches for me. I know you're gonna like me too. All right,
Our trip to Rome is because of Clark.
oh, he helped you out with that?
No, well, it's just, the Friday Flyer. My wife is just an avid follower of Clark Howard. And she's like, there's round trip tickets to Rome for $500. And we're like, okay.
Sweet.
Yeah, again,
Cheaper than going back to Oregon.
well, again, we're not here to push Clark Howard, but he can if he wants to sponsor the show. No, I'm kidding. Because today we're sponsored by Woodford Reserve Bourbon, because that's where, of course, Dale came from. Anyway, back to this story.
Mhm.
Can we?
Sure.
All right.
Let's.
Or shall we talk about your Rome trip?
No, that's
Okay, let's keep going. All right. So you're doing the investigative
'Cause I know you're
reporting.
jealous.
I am a little bit. Oh, of course I am. Molto bene.
Hmm.
He's going back to my home. He's going back to the mother country. I'm excited.
I'm going to go,
For
do you know Chris Lalamia? You know Chris Lalamia?
You know what they'll say? They say, otro paese, huh? It's a Siciliano. No, that last name, that doesn't live in Rome. that name only lives in Sicily. Yeah. And very few of us here over the United States. But continue, shall we?
Hmm.
All right. Can we get back to him?
Yeah,
please?
let's
All right,
let's
thank
get back to
All
Dale.
right, good. All right, so we're working with Clark. You're doing your thing. You're starting to investigate. You're doing all this stuff. And when did you decide that, you know what, maybe this isn't for me?
Well, it was in 2000 when about a half dozen police officers show up at my door about 12:30 in the morning, December the 15th. And they say the sheriff-elect of DeKalb County, Duane Brown, was murdered tonight, shot 13 times in his driveway. We expected to find you dead as well. You need to get your kids, get a few changes of clothes, come with us because you're going to have to go into witness protection. And Chris, that moment, it really, really got real for me. And I realized that I had to stand for something, or just go back to car wrecks, house fires, and drug shootings, which is the standard fare in television reporting. I either had to really do this in a serious way or get away from it. And I realized that night that no matter how much I tried to protect people from evil and bad things, I couldn't change it. I could not make a dent. And that's when I started thinking, well, how can I reverse this, reverse engineer it, right? And say, let me use these skills to figure out who's doing it the right way. And let me lead people to the people doing it the right way so they don't have this angst and junk that they have to deal with.
That must be, you talk about seminal moments, car wrecks, near-death experiences. But when you have the DeKalb County sheriffs, and again, if you're not from Atlanta, the DeKalb County sheriff showing up at your door with small children at your house, I'd be freaking out because I'm not sure which way it's going to go. I mean, I'm telling you, again, I love everything the police force does, but if they showing up in my house, I'm not thinking they're there for my protection. I'm thinking they're thinking I did something wrong, which I haven't.
Maybe it's because you feel guilty about things, Chris. Maybe we should talk about that.
No, that's what my
Should we,
therapist. That's what
unbox
my
that a
therapist
little
is
bit?
for. Different podcast.
By the way, the
podcast.
sheriff was in one of my rental cars. I was with Enterprise Rent-A-Car at the
Yeah.
time, and it had a bunch of bullet holes in it. We couldn't get it back. We were really pissed because, I mean, those things are good money makers.
Don't
and we
you
could just
hate it when that happens?
I know, it's evidence. I
You're
mean,
right.
come on.
Evidence,
Take a
evidence. Give me
picture.
that truck back. Give me
Yeah.
that car back.
Take a picture. We'll plug the holes, put it on the road, and get rolling again.
So, all right. So, we got to talk about that because if you're not listening to this podcast, this is really like true crimes podcast, which is
we
the
just
number
went
one
number
genre,
one. Yep.
which is what number one podcast genre ever. Here we go. So they grab you. So you and your family got to pack a bag, get in their car with them, and go somewhere.
We stay a couple of weeks at Embassy Suites. They move us from one hotel to another. I have to I'm still working, so I have to take a different route from work home. The station hired a retired Secret Service agent when we finally did come back home. He lived with us to teach us how to be more safe. And boy, you talk about some stories listening to a guy that worked for LBJ.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it's just amazing, but it really changed our lifestyle, so to speak.
Is that one? And so his wife's name is Angie, by the way. And I'm proud to say that myself that I'm on Angie's list. The real Angie. The real Angie. No,
This
she
is
is.
true.
And that's how he secret
So
shopping.
when do you decide not to be on witness protection program anymore? I mean, that sounds like that's a lifetime thing.
That lasted. We stayed. We went to Kentucky for the holidays, and so left the state. So they thought that we would be fairly safe, 3 states away. We came back. They kept us in hotels for a while longer, and then the DeKalb County Police Department assigned a person to live with us and stay with us in our house. We wired up everything for super security. Got double bolts on the door. I didn't know they existed, like 1.5-inch long bolts instead of the standard thing. And it took a year for them to arrest Sidney Dorsey, the seated sheriff of the county, who was the mastermind of what he did to the person who beat him in the election. It took him a year to arrest him. And so during that entire time, who knows? You just show up, you do your job, and trust God to protect you. That's the way it worked.
All right, so that's 2001. You had been working for the radio station. Again, outside looking in, radio station, very romantic, right? We get all this stuff. We get to go out there. We get to break these cases. He's a witness protection program. He's going to Kentucky, which sounds romantic. No? I mean, well, it is.
Depends
like-
on what part of Kentucky.
Right, as we've heard, yeah, there's yeah, not the coal miner side.
Yeah.
Where his dad was, he went to the fancy side where the bourbon and the horses are. All right, you come on. So you didn't leave then, you stayed with it. And so later on, you decided to leave. Now we want to talk about what made you want to leave then.
So when you work for a TV station, you wind up in a live truck every day, and you're riding around a live truck with a photographer. And those photographers have insight into the way the world works more than just about anybody you'll ever cross paths with, because you talk about a cross section of people. One day you'll be with just movers and shakers, and then the next day you'll be rutting through the woods looking for stray dogs because somebody said that there's a pack of dogs that were born and you got to go out there and get them and take them to the animal shelter. So it's just, I used to say I wrote the newsletter for the ant bed. I got to go to the top of the ant bed. I got to go to the bottom of the ant bed. I got to go to the farthest reaches. These photographers did too. And Chris, they would tell me every day, man, if just somebody honest would stand up and talk about the way government is run and how it's mismanaged and what's truly wrong, that person could really make a difference. And it was an earworm, and it got inside my head. It got inside my head, and I thought, okay, maybe that's what I'm supposed to do.
But you have TV, you have this amazing outlet where you can tell everybody everything and anything anytime you want, and you could do it all, right?
Well, I got to the point where every time I would bust a bad guy, he would be replaced by a worse guy. I just wasn't making a difference. I was just stunned that people would replace bad guys with worse guys and gals.
That sucks. Alan,
I'm just dumbfounded processing that.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, you were sitting here talking about being a businessman and doing things, and he says, no, I was doing my thing. I was doing what, again, you can tell he's very faith-based. I'm doing everything I was supposed to be doing, and I'm taking out bad guys, and worse guys show up, and what am I doing? I'm not making a difference. I'm not moving the needle. I talk about that all the time, whether it's helping your families, helping your company's families, helping your employees' families, man. I mean, one of the things we talk about in small business is, what am I most proud of? You're most proud of the fact that, yeah, you're providing for your families, but I'm really not. I'm more proud of the fact that I got 35 people and their families who go every day when they come to work. I'm there, and they're feeling that they got the TTB brand on their chest, and they're ready to rock and roll. So you're not making a difference. That's gotta suck.
It did. And I'm like, what am I here for? What's the point? You know?
And again, outside looking in, the Grammys, the Emmys, primetime Emmys. I broke this. Hey, at 23, I broke this ABC. I was going to be Walter Cronkite. He was one of the most revered people in the world back in the 70s, because that's when news was different.
Ate dinner with him every night.
Right? Right. And
Yeah.
so he was revered. He was, and here you are.
I
You
got
were
to meet him
exalted.
twice.
Did you really?
did.
Oh, come on.
Oh,
Yeah. I did a story in Nashville, and he happened to be there speaking, and he literally called the newsroom and wanted to know who did that story and to congratulate the guy because he's a real journalist. And I didn't even get to talk to him when he called in and said that, but I got to meet him later, and then I met him when I worked in Raleigh, and just a super guy.
Oh,
Just-
that's an amazing
Yeah.
story.
Well, that's even better to hear. I mean, especially as for us seasoned guys, because we're not old.
no
seasoned.
season.
Mhm.
Yeah, because we've been told that by our younger generation that we've had on the podcast. So, all right. So here we are. Let's talk about this. You made the jump to say, I'm going to get out. But before you did that, you said, I'm going to do something even better for my country, for my countrymen. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to run for office, politics. Ooh, I'm just sick. And you know what? Hang on. Break. I got to take a shower.
Yeah. Dale is
Okay,
not.
first of
afraid.
all, it's a different world in 2007 than it is in 2024. Okay.
He's not afraid to jump into the void, though. That's
He
what
did.
I'm getting out of this so far.
All right. So
Yeah.
he jumps up. So Dale, you say, you know what? I'm sick of everybody taking bad guys out and replace them with worse guys. I'm going to go make a difference and run for politics.
Yeah.
Again, break. I got to take a shower. Okay, we're back. All right, go.
Okay, so here's a little known fact, the best kept secret in government. 97% of the money that funds elections comes from 3% of the population. 97% of the money that funds elections comes from 3% of the population. And I'm telling you that 3% is not making 100 grand a year, right? So
So are they making 12.8
they're
or
making,
13,000?
they're doing a little better.
A little more than
A little
that.
And so what happens is the folks out there hire people to represent their position. Let's talk about lobbyists. They hire lobbyists to represent their position in Congress, at Congress. So AARP, you think it's a great organization. Well, they're going to fight like hell for the people they represent. They're not paid to represent or be concerned about kids who are not members of the AARP. That's not their concern. There's a whole group of people that are paid to worry about kids. So you get all these intractable positions in Washington where they're not working for the common good. They're working for the people that are paying them to be there. And I recognized that. And I said, you know, if someone would just tell the truth about that and say, look, all those issues, the red meat issues that you're getting upset about and you're choosing a candidate because of, that's a sideshow. That's not what's really happening in Washington. Your government has been stolen by special interests, and I still believe that to this day. But people, as I said, Alan, earlier, people believe two things when it comes to politics: cause and effect. But if there's a third variable that's more subtle that explains the cause and effect, they don't stick around to listen to it. And social media has made that even worse. So,
TikTok, Chris.
Hey, there's
See,
nothing wrong with
you
TikTok.
know-
Actually, I just laid down a great TikTok, by the way. But I do it for funsies, man. And you know what? I try to keep it light, keep it humorous, but because life is so freaking hard. And you know what? If you saw my social media, you guys all check me out. Instagram, Chris.Lalamia, Facebook, Chris.Lalamia, TikTok, Chris.Lalamia. Let's go. Everybody go out there and check me out. But it's fun, but life is still hard. And that's what Dale's talking about right now. We're getting into that hard stuff. So he goes and runs for politics. You know what? Check yourself before you wreck yourself on this one. If you want to bang on and hit on politics, you know what? Keep complaining, but step in and try to do something. Because that's what I hate about people. I can sit there and you can sit on the sidelines all day long and take pot shots at everybody who's ever tried to take a chance and do something and go, politicians.
And how many people are complaining and they don't even vote?
bingo.
Oh, that hurts. Yeah.
What he meant was that's a good point out.
All right, 2 for 2.
Okay.
All right, back to this. But he decided to take a chance. I joke about taking a shower, but he took a chance. He got into it. And what is it like to be running for politics?
So I ran for U.S. Senate, and I describe it as going to school every day in your underwear. You're 10 years old, and you're going to school every day in your underwear. People say things to you that they would never say to anyone else. They take pot shots at your family. They draw conclusions because of who you're running with or whatever. And it's a gauntlet. It's tough. But Chris, I call it the greatest fail of my career. You know, it was.
What do you mean by that?
It taught me so much. I lost my fear. I stopped fearing taking a risk. Now, I'm not talking about a personal risk of safety. I'm talking about putting yourself out there and taking a risk and risking that people won't support what you're doing.
This one, everybody, is a gold nugget. This one's beyond gold nugget. I got Alan over here tearing up. Chris can barely talk. We're into it because you just said something that is crazy. Because as you start your own business, you're like, fear of failure. Absolutely, man. We all had it, and I still have it. I have it 16 years into it. I got it tomorrow morning.
It's hard to make good business decisions when you're afraid.
When you're exactly right.
One of the first times I connected with you on a real level is when you told me your story, and you were in banking, and you're not in banking now, Chris. You're 180 degrees. Now, the lessons you learned from that were incredibly valuable, but you took a risk. You had to walk out on that plank.
We did.
Yeah.
And it's tough. And so as we talk, that's why I love having Dale on this episode, because you're in business for yourself. You've never had these experiences. Well, maybe if some of you guys have, but I just love his career arc that he's done. And then going all the way to going, you know what, I'm going to try to do better for man. And then you're being told that me trying to do better means I have to go out there and be a 10-year-old running my tidy whities, running across the field, and everybody's going, "Hey, fat boy." Well, that was me. Never sure. But
You apparently haven't gotten over the fear like Dale has.
I have. Well, you know what? Well, he says now I'm fearless. I would tell you, Yeah, no, I'm not fearless, but yeah, damn it, man, I'm gonna do it. And that's you gotta do it. And that's what you're gonna wake up every freaking morning going, you know what? I'm gonna solve that problem. I'm gonna do better that day. And that's where
That's a
this
better
gets,
description. I still have fear. I just push through the fear.
yeah. And you get up there going, you know what, today is gonna be a better day. Today I'm gonna solve that problem and I'm gonna get through today, I'm gonna get through tomorrow. That's what entrepreneurship is about.
It
Is it just as simple as my worst day in business is better than my best day at running for office?
Yes. Yeah. Great,
There's-
great
that was half
way
a
to
bingo.
put it.
Oh my God, 3 for 2. I hate that. All right, fine, but that's fine. But I'm not telling you if you're thinking about running for office, what Dale is telling you is don't come to this podcast looking for money because unless you want to sponsor me and Alan, right now we're working off bourbon and beer. So we probably can't give you a lot, but we can give you a lot of endorsements. Just again, it's gonna have to be worldwide, nationwide, and galaxy wide. Let's go back to Dale, shall we?
Let's.
All right. So Dale, you run it, greatest failure of your life. You come back out of it. But that's got to be hard. I mean, when you have your greatest fail, that's when you're in your deepest, darkest pit of your soul. This is the thing. It's hard to share with your wife. You definitely don't share it with your kids. What did you do?
Did it really feel like that big of a? I mean, you didn't get elected, but I don't. I mean, I'm so thankful that you just tried to do something and you were part of the process.
Well, let me set the stage. I'm 45 years old. The station that I worked for wanted me to come back, but I knew I would never be able to go back to the role I was in. Because when you choose a side and you run and stake a claim, the other side is always going to say, that's why he's after me. That's
Mhm.
why he's doing what he's doing. So I would have been relegated to car wrecks, house fires, and drug shootings for the rest of my career. And so I didn't want to go back to what I did. I had no safety net. Most people that run for office have a safety net. Somebody's putting them up, and if they lose, they've got a fallback. There's a job
Had you
waiting.
thought about that before you ran, or did it just become evident?
No, I thought about it before I ran.
Mm.
I was trusting God. I was like, I was stepping out and I was going to say, if I really believe this, then I'm going to live it. I'm actually going to take that chance. And, so when I'll give props to somebody that was very important in my life. I have a business mentor named Billy Corey. If you live in Atlanta, the smokestack on the Grady Curve that says Corey on it, that's Billy Corey. Uh, Billy did not give me a fish. He taught me to fish.
Mm.
And I would go see him because we just started cooking up ideas. He thought I was a fairly bright guy. And he said, "What do you want to do?" And we talked about going into roofing. He said, "Dale, everybody has to have a roof. You fly into Atlanta, everybody got a roof."
I've seen Billy talk once because of Dale, and that's the voice, by
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah.
He freaking nailed it.
And I started piecing together this idea that I'm going to help people make smart decisions. I have the tools to help them do that. And we started talking about what would I call this business? Is it going to be, Dale finds a way, whatever. And Billy is the one who said, "Well, it's trust Dale. That's what you want people to do. They want them to trust you, so it's trust Dale. TrustDale.com."
And
And
that's it.
And that's where it came from.
And I mean, basically, you sort of invented this business, right? I mean, was anybody else doing anything similar?
No, I have a lot of respect for Angie Hicks.
Mm.
Don't have a lot of respect for Angie.com because it's not Angie Hicks anymore.
Right.
But, Home Advisor was doing it to a certain extent. But the problem with those models is that they would take money from anybody that would fog a mirror. They'd put any contractor on the website and claim they were vetting them, but they weren't. And what most people don't know is that all those services now are owned by one guy. His name's Barry Diller. He owns Home Advisor. He owns Nextdoor. He owns Angie.com. And it's the same business model. We will put everybody on the website. So it's the yellow pages on the computer, and we'll charge the contractor. And then by the time the contractor finds out that it's not a value, they can't get out of their contract and their card just keeps getting hit. But that's another story for another day. I remember the early days, Chris, and I didn't even have unique phone numbers. I just had a description of the business. I had a short video explaining the merits of that business. I had my 7-point investigative process. I showed where they met it and how they passed it. And the only way I knew I was getting any feedback is if they sent an email. So I lived every day to have my phone buzz. And the first few months, my phone, when someone sent an email, I'd get a buzz on my phone, and it might happen once or twice a day, right? For the first several weeks, months. And then it would happen 5 times a day. And then it would happen 20 times a day.
All right, let's go back to this. So let's talk about the entrepreneurship journey. We talked about how you are, who you are, and what you've done. So you built this trust deal. I can't even do Billy Corey's voice, but I went her to speak once, and I was like, "Oh my God, Dale nailed it!" Great mimicking. But you said you did this. Did you have? Was this a side hustle? Was this a jump off the point and like, "Hey, Angie, my wife. Hey, kids.
Well,
There's no money coming in, but watch
actually,
this."
so I'm 45 years old. I'm thinking, what am I going to do when I grow up? So I actually went to insurance school. I got my certification in life and health, and then I later got it in casualty, right? And property. And so I became a licensed insurance agent. And I thought, okay, there's a vocation, there's something I can go into. I renewed my license every year, did what I took, but then I finally jumped off the ledge a couple of years ago and started my own insurance agency. So we've got Trustdale Insurance, and so
What year was that?
I got my license in 2010,
All right. When did you start the trustdale.com?
2009.
9. Again, you had no primary income other than trustdale.com at that point.
I did not. I had my wife's nursing salary.
So
She
you
carried
did.
me for
Yeah.
2 years.
You went, "Hey, Ange,
Yes.
you got to keep working. Here's what I'm gonna do." So I ran for government, and it didn't work out. Maybe you remember that. And so now I got this great idea. And Billy Corey talks like this, and he's got the. He said, "I'm gonna start this thing," and she went, "Oh, Dale, you go do that. I'll keep nursing. We're all right." Is that how it went?
And not exactly.
Angie's the
exactly.
saint. My friends, I have
She
met her.
must be. I mean, she's been dragged around to every major city.
Oh,
and
I
minor
put in
city in the
witness
South.
protection program.
Yeah.
You know what? That's what this is the first episode I'm actually going to have my wife listen to. Listen, honey, I have not put you in witness protection program.
Yeah.
I have taken you to the bowels of hell. I
Yeah.
know it. Hell, hell, hell. But I have not ever put you in witness protection.
It's funny. Her maiden name is Saint, so she truly is Angie
Oh.
Saint.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, you have to, Angie. I hope you're listening to this one, and we love you. You know that because you're the best, and Dale knows that.
Well,
too.
she keeps you employed, Chris. She calls you all the time for the next project.
Look at this
That-
grin
you-
on
you-
Chris's
That was
face.
the Cheshire Cat's Bridge.
Yeah.
Angie, call me for the next one. Don't worry about that. Dale doesn't need to know. Just call me. Call me. Okay. Call me directly. All right. Back to this. So you started this thing. And again, I think it's a genius business idea. If you look at his career guy, the arc of this guy's career, he looks for bad and he says, wait a minute, the same techniques I look for bad, I can look for good. And if I could take good contractors from a B2C model and put them business people with good people who are consumers who want to be educated and understand what they're doing so they make an educated and informed decision, I got an idea. And I call it trustdale.com. I think this is, I mean, it's for me, it's awesome. And not awesome because it's helped my business, but I just love the idea. Why has this not been replicated over and over and over?
I've had a good number of people come to me offering capital, equity, but what they want is control. And the first thing they say is, "Why don't you have 50 roofers on your site? You'd make more money." And I'm like, because it would dilute what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help people find a great company that's going to treat them fairly and do a great job.
But Dale, we want to make money, man. You need 50 roofers. Wait a minute. Oh my God. Let's go back to the beginning of the episode.
Yep.
He wants to do right by people. That sucks.
I know.
Can't make no money doing that.
Good
Yeah,
thing,
you can.
Good thing you don't have a sense of purpose, Chris. So you can just chase the dollars, right?
That's
Isn't
my
that what-
job.
Yeah.
That's why. Well, Dale likes me.
So
But-
you have to say no then to a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. We were negotiating with a major pest control company a few years ago, and it was getting close. And this would have been a biggie. This is a nationwide pest control company. And the investigative arm of what we do, we have a TV show, Trustdale Investigates, and we get 40, outreaches a month from people saying, "I'm in a hopeless situation. Can you help me?" We started investigating the situation where this family's home was literally falling down because of termite infestation. but they were declined for coverage because the clause in the contract says we have to find live infestation at the time we inspect. Now, this family had had the same insurance pest control company for 30 years.
Oh my
Who
gosh.
supposedly was inspecting every year, right? Well, they don't. And so when they did not find live infestation, they declined to pay the damage. And it just so happened we're talking to this company for possible representation, but my investigative arm is calling their marketing department saying, how do you reconcile these two things? And that relationship didn't happen because if you take a look at your insurance bond or your policy, you're going to find for many pest control companies, they have that exclusion that if we do not find live infestation at the time of your damage, we do not have to cover you.
If you're listening like I'm listening right now, blah, 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 blah. So that's the problem. No, not the blah, 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 Dale. It's the blah, blah, blah in the
I was
contract.
going to say, I
right?
beg your pardon.
No, but it's true. It's like, that's why he's where he's at.
And Chris,
This is
it's,
what's
it's
awesome
blah, blah, blah until it happens to you.
because it happens to you. And so Dale's out there championing for good businesses to get the good people. And that's the part that's so big to understand.
And one of the realities that I've learned after doing it for 15 years is that my potential is at most 30% of the available market. And let me tell you why. Because 30% of the people that I could reach won't use my service because they really believe they can get something for nothing. They're constantly chasing the too good to be true, and they never learn their lesson. They just keep making mistake after mistake because they're charmed into believing they can get something for nothing. The second 30% are people that don't control their own economic destiny. They are leasing a home from somebody else, or they live in an apartment. They don't get to choose the plumber that they hire. They don't get to choose the handyman that comes out. So there's 60% that I'm never going to be able to reach. My target audience are the 30%. Generally, most of them have been burned at least once. I'm looking at somebody that's 35, 36 years old. They can't afford to lose money, and then they get taken. And then they're like, honey, we got to make sure that we're hiring somebody that is going to show up and do what they say they're going to do. But it takes a young couple at least into their mid to late 30s for that kind of problem to happen.
A huge point. That's the one that I talk about all the time. Why did I start my business at 37? Is because when I was 23, my dad and I would never have bought my service into the trusted toolbox because we would do everything all the time. You know what? You want to learn to plumb? Yep. You want to learn to gas? I did, man. I ran gas pipe when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, good luck. The house is not blown up, by the way. But yeah, we would do everything, right? We did everything, and so it didn't happen. So here I go, fast forward to I graduate, I buy my first house, and the tract home builder says, well, it's going to be X amount of money to tile the bathroom. I'm like, screw that, I'll tile myself. When's the last time you tiled? I was 18. Yeah. So, but I looked at my wife and I was, yeah, I can do that. So we're buying this house. So I did it. And then you start working, you start traveling around, and you're like, hey man, I'm going to have you come work at my house. I get burned.
Yeah.
I'm like, he didn't do anything. And what did my wife say? Well, you know how to fix it. You can fix it yourself. I'm like, yeah, but we just paid him a lot of money, $750. And I had to work all weekend to unfix everything he fixed.
And Chris, what people learn the hard way is that magistrate court doesn't work anymore. Small claims court doesn't work. There's this mirage that you believe you can at least take someone to civil court for violating or not fulfilling a contract. It's so jammed. There's so many cases. Attorneys know how to play the system, and they'll get that defendant a continuance 1, 2, 3, half dozen times. And so the victim keeps showing up, trying to figure out why can't that guy have to show up? Well, because they're so overloaded, they don't want to get to the case. And so you wind up realizing, and then let's say you get lucky enough to get a judgment. No one's going to collect that judgment. You're not going to get anybody to go out and get the money from that company. I hate to be so negative, but we're past the tipping point on that system working for people, for regular everyday people, which is why you have to be so careful up front.
I love that idea because then that's where you build on this as a businessman, right? You build on this and go, wait a minute, if I do things the right way up front, but however, if I tell people my unique selling proposition is this. Dale talks about this and with my guys, and I use this with my sales team. Dale for us is a differentiator. Hey, look, you can go out there, you can check us out. So he has a $10,000 guarantee, make it right guarantee, right? And we go out to a person's house and my guys sell it. And the lady says, I don't believe you. And she says, my guy says, if you want, you can talk to my owner. So she calls me, says, hey, your guy says that he has a $10,000 make it right guarantee. You're guys going to screw it up. I said, well, first of all, no, Mrs. Jones, we're not going to screw it up, Mrs. Jones. If we're not going to go all the way to the sales. I said, but I will tell you that personally, he made it right on 2 guarantees last year. And you want to know why? He paid me $10,000 to fix other people's problems. She went, okay, we won that job. So wait a minute. You mean somebody's going to sit out there and back people he doesn't even know? And he did. And the other thing was he paid us 10 grand. I actually called and said, Dale, you don't have to. He goes, no, that's the deal. I want you to do it right. I want you to make sure you take care of the customer. That is a huge and powerful statement.
And let me give you some credit, Chris, too, because every owner of every company that I work with signs an agreement, puts it in writing that puts me in charge of your customer service. And now I never have to get involved with you and Trusted Toolbox because you take care of people. But I think it's the strongest testament you can have to how much you believe in what you do is to say, Alan, I'm so certain that you're going to have a great experience. This guy over here is in charge if you're unhappy. I've completely relinquished my control of what is going to have to happen to make you happy because I believe that much in my company. Now, it has to be what's promised in the written agreement, but that's the secret sauce, Chris. Finding owners that are that confident in their ability to deliver.
So think about this entire career arc that he's done, Ellen. And I think this is amazing. And that's why I love it. And that's why I'm so glad he came on now, because I want everybody to hear this one. He started out in Kentucky. He says, man, I'm going to go sports reporting. I'm going to go do this. And you know what? I just got this purpose in life that says I'm going to do the right thing. He actually tries to go into government, which is, oh, God, love you for doing that. Thank you, God, for
You
doing
need to
that.
take a shower, take a break.
Because I do, because there's no way. The more, of course, as I get older, I get more involved in it. But always voted, by the way. Since the moment I was eligible to vote, I've never not voted. All right, back to this. He found a way to get good people to good people. That's a huge thing. And then he goes, I'm going to back it up with $10,000 of my company's money. And so people go, oh, he's just in it for the money. Hang on a minute. Did you hear what I just said? He paid me $20,000. He didn't have to. He could say, Chris, man, can you just do this on the side for me? Probably would have. You know what? Honestly, because it's Dale. He didn't. He goes, no, you pay me full freight. You do the whole thing because I looked at the job. The job was done incorrectly. They were done wrong. That person was done wrong. And that's what we do. And we did it. I mean, you can hear me. You can not hear me. You can go to God. You can not go to God. This is one of those things where, guys, you either believe me or not. The dude's talking the truth. And that's pretty cool. And how does that help you as a business? Well, here's how it helps me in Atlanta. I have trustdale.com. He makes a differentiator. Now let's talk about business. I can't believe you can't get this thing replicated in the States, Dallas, Charlotte, New York. How come other people can't do the same thing?
Again, it's the people that have come to me that have offered capital want control of it. They want to change it so that they can scale it faster, Chris. Nobody's looking for a 4% return. They're looking for a 10% return. You know, tenfold return.
Tenfold.
Yeah, not 10%.
10. Yeah, tenfold.
Tenfold. And I've just never been willing to sell out. Now we have a presence in Nashville. We've got Trustdale in Nashville. And I don't think it's because I was a reporter there, because that was years and years ago. But we've got a core of 30 some odd companies that use it as a closing tool. And you know, it's working for them. But yeah, I would like to scale it. But when I was really in the scaling mode, I was traveling all the time. I was on a plane. I would wake up in a hotel room and not realize for a second which city I was in. And that's not a good life. You know that.
No, again, we talked about Angie and the fam, and no, he's actually in the grandkid mode, so which is awesome. And
Well, it does beg the question that you are this business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
exit strategy.
So
What happens?
So I've got a decent life insurance policy in case I get hit by a bus.
Angie, you can't
Right.
listen to this.
No. And I've toyed with that, Alan. I've thought about changing the name to trustyourdeal.com. I own that URL, but I've just never, I didn't do it because look at Angie.com. Angie Hicks started it 25 years ago. She's out of it pretty much now, but the name worked. The
Mhm.
name stuck.
Actually, the initial concept worked. I've listened to so much. You're right. When she was there, she stayed true to the concept. It was awesome. In
Mhm.
Columbus, Ohio, she was amazing. It just got diluted over time
Yeah.
as it worked out. And at the end of it, it got really diluted. So
Yeah.
I hijacked the answer, but I want to go back to it because I want you to finish it. So what is the exit strategy?
Good question. I'm 61. I feel like I'm good to do this another 9, 10 years, right? Happy with that.
How many years was that again?
9 more years. I'll be 70 in 9
You know,
years.
my grandfather retired at 55. My dad just reminded me of that.
Wow.
He goes, your grandfather retired at 55. Long story, but short story is, I'm like, Dad, I got so many years to go, and he did not graduate or graduate. We were just joking about this. Is that he did not even think about retiring, my dad, until he was 65. Now you're talking 72. I'm the same way. I'm like, I have so much more to give.
Yeah.
It's not that I need the money. It's the giving,
I
right?
enjoy it. I'm solving a problem every day
Right.
in a
Come
positive
on.
way, right?
That's called entrepreneurship.
And
And
so
that's what's in you.
yeah,
It
so
always has been.
So my son is our webmaster, very talented, built the website, runs it every day. My daughter is about to get her PhD in criminal psychology. Okay. Don't know how that happened, but she's a bright young lady and she's good on camera. She's good on television. And so I've thought about helping incorporate her into the psychology of why people make these mistakes and why they choose that, path when they should know better. So she may come into the business at some point. Who knows? I just don't want to sell it to somebody that doesn't believe in what I'm doing.
Right.
That's the
Amen.
key.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I just wish I could have got my kids into handyman. So no, I have a person who wants to go
Do
be-
better, Dad.
I got Sydney, and she is classic, by the way. And she is the t-shirts that you can buy on the Small Business Safari. It's called Do Better. And no, Dad, no.
There you go.
That's my 25-year-old who is in PA school. And then I've got a lawyer. Oh, dear God, he wants to be a lawyer.
Ugh.
I know. I tried to talk him out of him since he was 8 years old. The kid has never wavered. He's 23 now. He's going to do it. So he's off to law school. Good news is he'll probably bail Dale out, Dad out of jail. That's a long story, but that's why I want one. All right, back to Dale. Can we?
Sure. Let's.
What should we end with?
I can't wait for his book recommendation.
Oh my God. All right, Dale, you've written a book. I've written a book. You've endorsed my book. Alan's endorsed my book. We love talking about my book. It's called From the Zoo to the Wild, Your Guide to Entrepreneurship and Freedom. All right, let's go. But I'm more excited about it because I was thinking about Dale's book. It's called Don't Get Scammed because I have read it. How many books have you written?
Oh, 3.
Yeah.
Only one has been published. I've written some novels. I've written a couple of novels, fiction, because I enjoy doing it. But
they've got to be awesome.
Yeah,
They've got to be like.
Why aren't you publishing them?
I'm a perfectionist. I'm just working on it until I feel that it's good enough to put out.
It's time to go.
I know.
Hey, if you want to publish a book, you're going to contact Dale Cardwell. Trustdale.com. All right, forget that. What's a favorite book you would recommend to entrepreneurs? Like, you came from a really crazy world. We didn't get a chance to talk about this a lot, but I really romanticized what you did, and you kept telling me, no, Chris, it's just like corporate America. I'm like, no, there's no way. He goes, oh yeah, no, you completely had to be in a box. But I started my own business, and you've done it, man. You've done it. You've got to where you wanted to be, and you stayed true to your values, which is also something that.
Well, I
can't do it. I can't say I did. Because I would do anything to anybody at any time.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back. But what's a good book?
When I have a crazy business idea, Chris, who do I call?
We talk a lot.
Yeah, we talk a lot. We talk a lot. Simon Sinek, Start with Why.
Love
Okay.
that. Yeah.
It had a big influence on me. The Tipping Point by Malcolm
Love
Gladwell.
that.
Right.
Oh,
Good to
yeah, that's a
Great,
good one.
of course. And I listened to the Masters of Scale with Reid Hoffman.
Ooh.
And
New one on me.
podcast, and it's entertaining. It's talking about building a business. Seth Godin, Startup School.
Entertaining building a business. You may need to slash your tires.
You know what? That guy can't scale a business like I can. Hello, big boy. You know what? Welcome to my world.
Rookie.
Yeah, you know what? Dale does it with truth and honesty and integrity. I do it the other way, my friends. Welcome to my world.
And the
Sicily.
reason, and I'm gonna
Gelano.
this is the plain truth. I loved your book. Love your book because it's a nuts and bolts. This is really the way it works. It's not platitudes. It's like, here are the things you've got to think about, and
Yeah.
there are the steps you have to take to get from point A to point K. And so that's why I think it's so good. And
Thank you.
everybody that considering, how many people consider jumping out and doing their own thing? This is a book you need to read before you actually jump.
We should just end on that. I mean, my God, what an endorsement
Yeah, we
from
gotta stop.
the
All right.
Dale Cardwell.
We should.
Yeah.
We're done. We're out of here. You know what? I gotta go because I'm verklempt. I'm big. Dale Cardwell, thank you so much for coming on the show. If you learned something, that's on you, man, because we had some awesome crap. We're dropping down. This is awesome stuff. And don't, by the way, go to Witness Protection Program. We're out of here.
Cheers. Thanks, Dale.
My pleasure.